Welcome back to the first ever virtual City of Beverly Hills Art Show. I'd like to welcome painter Richard Reiner. The first question I'd like to ask you is, how does your day unfold when it's an art making day? How does that work for you?
It usually starts the night before. There's really not a set way that I work, but usually the night before, if I know I have several paintings, I usually work at the same time. I just try to see what kind of, story I want to tell, but that changes as soon as I get up. I would just sit in my backyard because I do a lot of meditating out there and just I look at the skies, look at the trees. I really just try to take in whatever nature comes by. If it's birds, if it's butterflies, if it's an insect, if it's my dog, I kind of go off on feeling. And once I get a feeling, I'll go towards the canvases. And when I see the canvases, I'll stare at them for a while.
And you always paint outside, or do you pretty much like 95% or?
Yeah, no, I'd say probably 90. Yeah, I'd say about 90%. I mean, the only time I'm indoors if it's raining, and I'll even paint in nighttime with very little light.
When you're painting outdoors, but are you painting what's around you or not necessarily?
I just use the environment. If it's a cold day, sometimes I like to stay cold. If it's a warm day, I'll go with what it is because I kind of like feed off of that. But once I start painting, I'm not really observant of my environment, only just what I feel.
So where are you from?
Born in the Bronx and then grew up in the tri-state area around there, Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Moved to Atlanta for a while and then moved out here in '78.
Did you paint when you were back there, or is it more recent?
I was actually in the theater a lot, and painting was really something I never picked up till much later on. I took art classes in high school and always wanted to get back to it, but the stage or other aspects of the entertainment business kind of pulled me that way.
Right.
It was about 18 years ago where I happened onto it, and I paint almost every day.
And you're currently living in Los Angeles, right?
I am.
Do you live near the ocean?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I'm up in Mar Vista, so, if I get up, my kids joke around with me a lot. I used to go around with a camera a lot, and I would take pictures of the clouds and the sunset. So if I was in the car, I'd pull the car over, even if we're loaded up going camping or we're going somewhere else, just stop and start firing off some pictures, to archive them. I pretty much get lost into the atmosphere, with looking at the clouds, seeing different things, and the same thing with the sunset and sunrises.
Would you like to look at a little show of your art now?
Sure. This was something that started off with a reference photo I shot, and it looks nothing like it at all. I mean, I quickly start with that, and then I let the paints and I let the painting lead where it goes. And when I'm really kind of in that zone, I'll paint for hours. I'll step back, look at it, but I try to really finish a painting in one sitting. It depends what kind, not the figuratives, but the landscapes I do. I can't recreate what I felt yesterday, 3 days from now. And sometimes, it's best to leave it and come back to it, and it's always morphing into something else. But if it is really just feeling such a good vibe from the painting, I commit to being with that painting. And I'll get to a point where I'll back off and I'll go, it's never finished, and I don't want it to finish. I want to get it to a point where it's pleasing to me and it's giving me some kind of, it's allowing me to complete the painting by visually getting engaged with it. So that's why I let most of the people who look at the work, hopefully that's what they do. They complete the painting, not me.
Since you're operating so much based on your kind of mood or inner psychological state or what have you, is it hard to do commissions, or do you do them?
Yeah, I paint because I paint for me. And when I paint for somebody else, it is still going to be a painting for me. If somebody passes away and they were very dear, they meant something to me, or I'll do something that's a gift, and that's totally different. If it's a commission piece, I found that there were many times, not many times, about 3 or 4 times I had commission pieces. And I worked on one that was a figurative piece in Hawaii. It took me 6 months. And about 3 months into the painting, I was really satisfied with it. And I asked the people to come over. And they came over and they sat in my living room and I said, well, here it is. It's not done all, but it's pretty much where, what do you think? And they got there and they looked at it and both of them had their hands behind their back and they went, uh-huh. It was not the response I was looking for. So I said, well, don't worry about it. Come back in a month, or a few weeks, we'll see what happens. And I did it again, and the same response was evoked. So at that point, we both said, I was having a horrible time with it. I was not enjoying it. It's a good painting, but to me, it could be a good painting, but if it doesn't give off anything, it's not a good painting. So to make a long story short, she said, why don't you draw a picture of our dog, Charlie, our golden retriever? I said, I'd love to. Charlie won't talk back. He'll bark back. So I painted it. It came out really well. They really loved it. Less than a year, the dog passes away. They still have that painting. And every time I see them, they say it's the best gift that they ever, it wasn't a gift, they bought it, but it's the best painting for them in their household. This painting is actually one which was much lighter. The palette was much lighter. It was more cheerful. I wouldn't call this cheerful. I've called this also probably turbulent, moody, but there's something in there. Even when my paintings are moody, I hope there's always something that's tranquil, something peaceful in there. And I hope it also, I use the word hope a lot, but that's what I actually like to paint, that no matter what's happening, that too will change. If you look really hard, you'll see something, hopefully, that will resonate that feeling of hope.
You didn't paint what you saw at that point. Was this another time when you're painting in your driveway, or?
I do a lot of, work where I'm driving around and I'm looking at the landscapes or looking at the skies. And like I said before, I archive a lot of that stuff. But again, you can't recreate something that you saw, even looking at it, a photograph. I find it very sterile. So, but I'll use it because maybe the composition is something that I really like. But most frequently, as soon as I start a painting, it starts changing right away, except if it was, the figuratives are actually people I know or places I've been or a setting where they don't know that I'm shooting. I like to shoot a lot of things behind people. I always think that's very interesting. Where are they going? What are they thinking? Where are they going? And where have they been? And hopefully the painting gives an element of mystery to it as much as the figure in the painting. This started out with all brushes, and then for some reason I got into picking up rags, and I also picked up then the palette knife, and I would cut in and out of it. And when I stepped back, I went, whoa, this is really different, and I just let it stand on its own. I just backed off of it. And
yeah, there's some great texture in there.
Thanks.
And the colors are really intriguing as well. Are there artists who've influenced you in terms of this type of work?
Well, there's so many artists that are so good, and there's actually a lot that are excellent, but I don't resonate with some of those. I mean, the people that some of the more contemporary people, there's Dan McGaw is one. Luke Leesmaker, who's actually passed away, he was one. Richard Schmid, still around. And many of my friends, I actually became friends with many artists, and there's something of their work and something of them that, I gravitate to. So they really, the classics, I really appreciate. I love going to museums. I never really liked abstract artists at all, and I found myself quickly 15 years ago, I started loving the Bay figurative artists, and I still really love those artists. So yeah, I learned from every, I'm a kind of like I can't get enough. I'm a kid in a candy store. I go to festivals or I go to art shows, go to galleries, museums. I will sit in front of something that if it speaks to me and just stay there, moving in and out, looking at everything, looking at something really minuscule that really affected me. And
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I was sort of thinking of like Constable and Turner in terms of the landscapes, like the
So you
classic
mean women? You
British
mean?
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's actually one that's a little younger by a lot.
Well.
Who's also Turner. Used to teach, I think, in Pasadena at the Art Center,
Hmm.
and I think his work is fantastic.
Right.
Okay, father and son. This is really cool because a friend of mine, he wanted a painting. Uh, Actually, he didn't want a painting. He posted a picture of him and his daughter. So I just painted it and I had posted it up. And he calls me up. He says, I want that painting. And I went, well, first I wasn't ready to sell it, but
Hmm.
it was about him and his daughter. And I was flattered. And I went, yeah, sure. And,
Right. Right.
he got the painting and he loves it. And 2, 3 years later, they had another child. And then this child would come up to that other painting and said, Dad, how come, who's in that painting? And he said, it's your sister. He says, well, how come I don't have one? So John called me up about 2 months ago and I started painting it. And this one's actually going to be delivered this week. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just sweet. The dad and son taking a walk, and they're going into this wooded area. And I'm very fond of the outdoors and nature and wildlife. So I try to put a lot of different things in it, and I again let the figures stay one way, but everything else, the strokes are a lot different. From the street to the trees to the sky, and then you have these two figures. The father is one, and kind of just silhouetted. There's variations of blues and blacks and greens and alizarin, and then the son is a totally different style. And I just wanted to have that kind of chemistry merge of, youth and someone who's older. And
So I was wondering if we could go to the one with the blue background and the four figures seated.
I believe this is also unbeknownst to a friend of mine. She had posted, I think it was their graduation, and I thought it was just a great picture of the four of them, and they were so happy at this event, which I still don't remember exactly what the event was. I wasn't there. Posted it and I just started painting it, and I really had a lot of fun painting. And if it's not fun, this is not labored over. This is loose. This is kind of more free formed, and I rather paint like that. It matches who I am.
Well, it's interesting to see a completely flat background. It works great, but you talk about nature and outdoors, and this is like a whole other thing.
Right. Well, here it's really about what they're feeling, how they're reacting, and it's a really loving family. So I know, actually, I don't really know the kids, and I know a little bit of the husband, and I know the wife quite a bit. And I just think it exuded a certain kind of vibe, and I just said, well. And it's not the way the photograph really is. Maybe the bodies are, but I've turned things around a little bit. Took some liberty. I don't know if it's cohesive because, again, it's something that, the subject matter, it's my feeling at that moment, or if it gives me a feeling and takes off. This one was a friend of mine that actually, we were, our wives and him and I were going to a gallery show downtown, and it was in this warehouse. And Andy got ahead of me, and I started walking. And I go, Andy, don't look back, just stop right where you are. And I started taking a bunch of pictures. And then, so this is called Ascension of Man or something, I think. But yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. This is something that's out of my mind too. This is a lot of this work I really enjoy because this is where I kind of find myself. I allow, myself to really get inside the painting and explore and let the paints run, move. And I'll paint for quite a while before I step back. The figure is I'll step back a lot. This was a sunset. Somebody wanted a commission. I wouldn't do it. I said, why don't you tell me what you like? And they said, well, we really love sunsets. And I asked them, well, what colors, what do you have in your house? What do you like? And I said, fine. So I ended up painting. She saw one painting she loved, but it wasn't big enough. And I don't want to recreate it. So anyhow, I ended up painting about 8 paintings, and she finally liked the painting. It's funny, the art fairs, I don't really like to do much of them. There's a lot of work that goes into them, but I find Beverly Hills is really gratifying for so many different reasons. It's a great venue, it's run really well. I have a lot of friends, fellow artists that are there. The community, I'm close to that community in and around. It has quite a bit of populated people who are art savvy and not, and just like to come out. And so I like that. But I've done the Crocker Museum, the fundraising. I've had paintings in there for the last 5 years. I've done the Laguna Art Museum. I've had a few paintings sold out of there, and several galleries.
Right. I really want to thank you for joining us today, Richard. I'm sorry we don't have more time to have more fun, but I really appreciate your joining us.
Be well, be safe, take care. Thanks.